Well, hi there. We are over this month or so highlighting some of our ministry partners. One of them is Freedom for Faith. I'm here with Micahel, Kellahan, Executive Director for Freedom for Faith. Welcome to TAC Online Church.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Excellent. Glad you're here. We've only been supporting Freedom for Faith in the last 12 months or so it's a bit new for us. Would you take us back, just give us a bit of an outline of what Freedom for Faith is, how it came about?
Well, let me start by saying thanks. We're really grateful for the partnership, and it's local churches linking up around the country that are making a difference for us. Historically, we came into being because in Canberra, parliamentarians all the time are wanting to talk with churches about issues that affect them and that affect the country. And they just can't do that with thousands of different groups, and so it makes sense for them to be able to say, oh, here's a group that represents a broad range of churches and is able to speak in a way that kind of gives them the options they need to do business.
Right, so it's a legal think tank, and you're working at promoting religious freedom across Australia and beyond.
Yeah, and so there is a strategic kind of focus we've got. We're really just there on freedom of belief issues. So seeing that promoted, seeing that protected, and being a voice that's able to work really across both sides of politics on that, and giving them better solutions, policy options, legislative drafting than they would have come up with, or their staffers would have come up with without us.
Yeah, great. Some will say, thinking about this, that Christians shouldn't necessarily expect freedom. Christians should expect even persecution, maybe shouldn't be involved in this way in the legal space. What do you say to those kind of objections?
Look, I don't think there's a way to get out of the legal space. Laws have a habit of touching all of us. So, the moment you're meeting like this because of laws that have said, you shall not meet, as you walk through the car park here, there are laws that govern how many car park spaces you need to have. So law has a habit of kind of reaching into all of life. And so either you let the government just decide all that for you and you're fine, you trust them completely, or you say, actually, there is a place for Christians to speak reasonably kind of into that space.
Yeah, okay. There's obviously lots of issues going on in the law at the moment. Recently, I was at a meeting of kind of different faith leaders talking with our local federal member about the religious discrimination bill. This is all kind of before COVID hit. Is that still one of the big issues at the moment, or are there other things going on?
Yeah, so the religious discrimination bill was up to about its third version, and we've had a hand in kind of seeing that improved through each of those. And it was just about to go into Parliament as the nation really shut down. And so that timing-wise, it's in hibernation, along with any of the legislative agenda of the government that's not to do with the economic and health crisis before us.
So it's a bit of a shutdown on those things.
On that, it's certainly the biggest one. There are state issues, so even tomorrow we're appearing before the Upper House in New South Wales on a private member's bill on religious freedom. So there are different issues that arise, of course, but the big one, you're right to say it has been that religious discrimination bill, and the Commonwealth government has never had a law that deals with that kind of question of freedom. In over 100 years, it's never done that. And so for it to come out with a bill that says, look, we do want to be in that space, it's important that we give the best possible response. So that will come back, but we're just waiting for the resumption of Parliament.
Sure, right, okay. Overall, trying to impact the political process sounds like it must be reasonably slow work. How do you kind of measure impact? How do you kind of see wins in that kind of space?
Well, I think the religious discrimination bill is a great example. So when you see what hasn't even yet hit Parliament, there has been a process over a few years where there have been a number of inquiries. We've appeared before each other, where there have been submissions called for, and we've put in submissions that kind of say, look, here is the direction that law should be going. Each time, that's a very contested space, and so you do need to be able to speak in ways that will work politically, in ways that work for the law, and in ways that genuinely represent the concerns of people of faith across the country. And the measure of it is, well, have a look at what the legislation looks like. And, there are provisions there that the drafting has accepted the arguments we put. I can point you to a number of places where we've genuinely kind of nudged the dial in terms of where things have landed. There's more to be done, and we're continuing that work, but it's quiet, it's behind the scenes, it's out of the public eye, a lot of this stuff, but strategically it's really quite significant.
When it comes to, there's obviously differences in politics that you need to be working on both sides. There's real differences in churches and in Christian kind of points of view and views on any given topic. How do you think about navigating differences between Christians on these kind of things and formulating your response?
Yeah, well, look, I think one of the things that's fascinating about the work we're doing is we will often have a room where we've got not just differences amongst Christians, but even have other faith groups in the room as well. So you've actually got, in the one room working on this stuff, we've got an imam and a rabbi and a bishop and, these different people, and they're never actually going to agree. But in some ways that's a picture of modern Australia. That's what it looks like. We actually do have genuine religious diversity. We don't all believe the same things. We don't all think the same things. And the challenge for us is to think, well, how do you work given that diversity? Like, do we say you've all got to believe the same things, and the answer is you must conform to this secular agenda or this religious agenda? And we say that's a terrible way that we've got to avoid at any cost. We've actually got to make space for freedom so that those differences can exist, so that we can actually speak about those differences, so that you can have a conversation between a Christian and a Muslim and a Jew and a secularist, an atheist about how we should do life together.
Right. At the moment, world's gone crazy. COVID-19 has been going on. More recently, race riots, all the stuff we're seeing on the news. We're seeing people involved in politics in all kinds of different ways. Has our current kind of climate changed how freedom of faith is operating, or the different things that are on the agenda at the moment?
Yeah, look, certainly the moment that COVID-19 took off, the government really went onto a war footing and have just been focused on the health and financial crises before us. Not just government, but opposition as well. It's been a remarkable time. Just seeing some of that close up. People exhausted. People are working at a speed that they've never worked at before with very limited kind of information. You've seen agreement between federal and state governments that you've kind of never seen before, and some big changes with that. And so it's been anything but business as normal, and we've been caught up in that in some ways, so helping a bit around some of the emergency measures of what lockdowns might look like for churches and how charities might be affected and how people can be helped in the middle of the crisis. And some of that work will continue, but yeah, it's been a remarkable year for all of us, hasn't it? Like, just hard to believe that the scale of many of the things before us.
Do you have any wisdom for us as we just hear so much from different news sources about political processes, particularly across the world? Any advice for us as Christians as we kind of process that? It's very hard to know people calling out news as being fake or overdone, or different sides of the story when it comes to the right and those kinds of things. Any wisdom for us as Christians as we kind of consume that information and try and process it?
It's interesting. We certainly see, I think, a level of polarisation that we haven't seen before, and it would be a mistake if the church fell for that as well, if we just kind of pick our political tribes and silos and kind of sit within there. I think one of the big problems facing politics, if you take politics as kind of how do you do life together, is the lack of agreement in what the common good should be. Some of that comes out of the end of Christendom, growing secularisation, and just the lack of agreement of what the good life kind of looks like. I think Christians have got an ability to speak into that space, because in some ways these issues, as crazy as they are not new to us if we know our history. So the history of the church, I think, helps us understand how we can serve the whole community at a time like this. But I think too, the gospel itself, Christian faith, has got to be the thing that we frame our understanding of the world from. And so when it comes to issues like, you're seeing huge unrest with Black Lives Matter, with tearing down statues, with questions about democracy itself. I think I personally have found it a comfort to be reading in the Psalms about the way that the nations are to praise God because He's sovereign over them, and the way that He will judge the nations is something that's supposed to give comfort. See, I think a lot of times we would think, well, we can't talk about judgment, it's going to scare people, but in some ways saying, God cares about injustice, and He will actually punish the wrongdoer, and He holds rulers to account for the way that they kind of carry the sword, if you use the language of Romans 13. Like He puts them in place there to do justice. Then I think there is a place for the Christians, for the church, to speak prophetically into that, and to call the nations and to call the rulers to account, to be praying for them, 1 Timothy 2, to do those things as well. But to recognise this particular place that God has for the rulers of the nations to do justice to those that God entrusts their care with. Big answer, big issues before us. It feels more like you could do a sermon series around that.
Yeah.
Something short here.
We're just ordinary people out here, and politics seems big and scary at times. How can we, ordinary people, be involved appropriately in the political process?
I think we all underestimate our ability to shift the dial on politics and stuff like that. Toongabbie is one of the most important strategic places in the country. So when federal parliamentarians hear that you're from Toongabbie, they lean forward, they take notice, because your vote's not solid one way or the other. Yeah, right. So they're really, really interested in Western Sydney completely. But how can any of us have a role? I think the Scriptures call us all to pray for rulers. So we're all to do that. I think the second way would be to be informed and to be aware of what's going on. And certainly one of the things we're trying to do through these partnerships, but through the website and so on, is to give resources to help people be aware of some of the things before us. So that would be kind of the second level. Third level would be to say, well, actually, some people do need to be directly kind of involved. It won't be everyone, but someone should be thinking, actually, I could be a member of the school's PNF, or I could actually pick up the phone and make an appointment to see the local member. And so I'm concerned about this. It's just like getting an appointment with a GP. Like, it's not that hard. You can actually do these things. And they listen. So those things, I think, would be I think, the starting point for any kind of engagement on this.
Great. How can we, kind of wrapping up, how can we be praying for you and for the work of Freedom of Faith in this next period?
Well, it's always grateful for prayer. If you're on our newsletter, you'll see kind of monthly prayers that we put out. But it's certainly been a time of great disruption for us. And with that, we've really had a bit of a pause, a bit of a moment where we're thinking, what's next? We're very conscious of the number of challenges across different states and that are coming up on the parliamentary calendar, and for wisdom to know how to speak graciously into that, and how to make best use of the kind of scarce resources we've got into that space we're in.
You mentioned the newsletter. How do we find out more about you and how do we find out more about Freedom of Faith and get involved?
Well, first, thank you for having me here. It's really kind of great to come out, and I look forward to coming out sometime when you're able to meet in person with people as well. But yeah, the website, freedomforfaith.org.au, Facebook presence, hit me up on Twitter, reach out. We'd love to make that connection.
Great. Well, we'll link to those things on our Facebook group and other places as well. If you're watching at church, you'll only see a portion of this interview. We'll release the rest of that to you in other ways, so you can get the whole chat. Thanks so much, Michael, for being with us today.
Pleasure.
Thanks for your work with Freedom of Faith, and we look forward to following it in the future.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.